So our oral rounds got cancelled, and we were only judged by our memorials. So it wasn't a great experience, but um, because definitely, you you're not able to make the most out of a moot court competition in an online version. But yeah, after that, I have judged quite a lot of competitions now. Uh, so it has been good, at least from this side of the bench. Sir, I saw today update, but unable to understand today's news. Can you please explain what is written in today's top news and why I feel it's difficult? Let me just quickly check. Right. I think this will take a while. Maybe we can address it towards the end of our session, if that's all right. Thankar? Okay, there's another one. Sir, in which year moot is moot is which year is best for moot court competition? Right. See, there is no rule per se. The earlier you start, the better it is. But you have to realize that you will be competing against, students who are in much senior um, years of law school. So it can be a bit intimidating and it can be a bit disheartening at times as well. Because obviously, if you're competing against a fifth year and you're in your first year, um, the fifth year is bound to know more law than you have, right? So that is there. But then again, there is no strict um criteria as to when you should begin mooting. If you're fine with that, then I don't think there is a problem starting in your early years as well. Right. Uh, are there any other questions that you guys feel? Sakshi, could you please let me know when we're good to begin?
Sir, due to some technical glitch, moderator is unable to join. We'll start
Okay.
shortly when she joins.
Yes, yes, no worries. Let me know whenever. Right. In the
Yes,
meanwhile,
yes,
if I'm answering questions, please feel free to interrupt me.
yes.
My voice is quite low. Okay, I'll try speaking up. Thank you for pointing that out.
Sorry for late, everyone.
Um,
Am I audible?
Yes, you are, Shalu. Please start.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all the participants joining us today for our session. We are delighted to have all of you with us this evening. We will begin in just a moment. Before we formally begin, let me ask you a question. As law students, we spend years studying legal concepts, case laws, and procedures in classroom. But have you ever wondered how these concepts translate into real world practice? What skills are truly required beyond academic knowledge? And how can students prepare themselves for a successful career in law? Today's session is designed to answer these very questions. This session will provide practical insights into legal research with AI, professional growth, and the transition from law schools to legal practice. Today's session is organized by the Collective Council, a platform dedicated to bridging the gap between legal education and legal practice through practical learning initiatives, mentorship opportunities, skill based programs, career focused training. Our objective is simple to help law students and young legal professionals develop practical skills, gain industry exposure, and prepare themselves for successful legal careers. It is now my privilege to introduce our esteemed speaker for today's session, Advocate Ujjwal Sharma Sir. Advocate Ujjwal Sharma Sir is distinguished professional known for their expertise in legal research and dedication towards mentoring aspiring lawyers. Through their professional journey, they have guided numerous students and young professionals on understanding real world practice and skill building. On behalf of Collective Council, I extend a warm welcome to Ujjwal sir. Without a further delay, I would like to hand over the session to you, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for that lovely introduction as well. Very excited to be talking to all of you again today. I hope you enjoyed yesterday's session, and I hope I'm able to fill in the shoes for today as well. Right. Uh, so, if we're all good to begin, let's then begin. I would advise, please keep a notepad or a notebook handy in case you feel like there's something you want to jot down. It's always a good practice. Uh, okay, so let me start with a simple question to all of you. How many of you have spent hours and hours to find out a case law, only to later on discover that it has been overturned or overruled? Has this the case been with anyone? Yes, right. Uh, or if in case, let's say, you've started searching, you've opened 10 tabs in your browser, and you've downloaded 3, 4 PDFs and three commentaries, and somehow end up reading an article which is completely not relevant to the original research question that you had, set in front of you. That has happened with all of us. Trust me, it has happened with me as well. If it has happened with you as well, congratulations, you're already experiencing, the top-notch level of legal researching. So once you start studying law, or start studying the realities of law, you will realize that we often, spend a lot of time searching for answers. In fact, if you ask any lawyer, for that matter, what they do on a day-to-day basis, they will answer to you that what they do is they read, they think, and then they research. Right? So legal research is not a separate skill that you need apart from the legal practice. It is actually what legal practice is. Right? Now, this is true regardless of whatever profession you choose after you graduate. Be it if you become a litigator, if you become a corporate lawyer, an academic, a judge, a public policy professional, or even an in-house counsel, right? Your effectiveness will depend, or your efficiency will depend on the ability to find out the right case law. It is not only about finding the right case law, as we figured out or we talked about yesterday. It is about understanding it correctly and applying it to a specific problem. And that is what brings us to today's topic, that is legal research and the use of AI in law. So today we will be talking about, as you would have noticed, we will be talking about two things. The first being the legal research, and second, artificial intelligence. Now, artificial intelligence is intentional because, let's be honest, we have all used ChatGPT to research something, right? So it would be very unfair of me if I do not address how do you use AI correctly in legal research right now, because then I would be, just ignoring what the realities of today's world are. So you have to understand that when it comes to legal research, right? AI is not your destination, right? It can never be your destination. It can never be the final tool that you have to use in a legal research. You would have noticed how I said it cannot be a final tool, but that means it has to be a tool. The goal remains the same as it has always been, to find reliable answers to your legal questions, right? Now, there are a lot of tools that you can use to find out what your answer may be, but the lawyer's responsibility does not change here, right? At the end of the day, the lawyer's responsibility is to provide answers to the questions that have been raised. Now, if you could please give me a raise of hand quickly, let's do a quick poll. How many of you have used tools like ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude or be it any other platform to conduct academic or legal work? Right? Quite a lot of you. I think almost all of you. And that's very interesting, right? And for those who haven't used AI yet, trust me, um, it's quite good, right? And you don't need to worry about it. By the end of this session, you will have a better understanding of not only how to use it, but also uh, when not to use it, right? Because that is also important. There are times when you do not have to use AI. So by the end of the session, you will have a better understanding of how to properly use AI, right? Because here's the challenge that we face today, right? We don't suffer from the lack of information. There is no lack of information in today's world, right? 20 years, if we talk about 20 years ago, that was the problem, right? My seniors, they tell me that they used to spend hours in the library, right? Going through all the, has anyone seen all those SCC bundles, right? There are so many
Yes.
books, so many books. And my seniors tell me they had to, spend hours going through those SCC books trying to find one case law. Now imagine how difficult that task must have been when you do not know what year you have to look for, what year or what volume you have to look in. So now in today's world, we do not suffer from a lack of information. What we rather suffer from is too much information, right? You see, courts are not stopping. Every day, like Titankar shared a link earlier, every day there are judgments being delivered, right? Every day legislations are being amended, be it in India or outside, because your job does not stop to, only Indian law. There are regulators issuing notifications. There are legal commentaries being published. The problem is no longer finding information. Rather, the problem is finding information that is relevant, authoritative, and current. Right? There is a message. Today, Supreme Court said if you use AI, then you also need to validate from the court. Then only it can proceed further. Absolutely, the Supreme Court has issued guidelines for the use of AI in legal practice. If you get time, please go through those. It has also said how to use AI and what permitted areas are for the use of AI and what are the areas where you should refrain from using AI. But coming back, right, today we will focus on three things, right? Because legal researching is a critical tool, as we've discussed, critical part of your journey as a lawyer. So we'll discuss three things. First, we will understand the foundations of effective legal research. Second, we'll discuss a structured research process that you can apply to any legal problem. And third, we'll explore how AI can support the process without replacing your own judgment, your human judgment as a lawyer. Because despite all the excitement that is there around AI, right, there is one thing technology still struggles with, that is legal reasoning. And that is why I don't think in the years to come, a lot of lawyers would be replaced by AI. So your jobs are safe, don't worry. An AI model can, yes, I'll repeat those 3 points. First, we'll understand the foundations of an effective legal research. Second, we'll discuss how do you structure a research process. And third, how do you use AI, right? So an AI model, what it can do is it can summarize a judgment very well. It cannot rather stand up in court and explain why the opposing counsel has misunderstood the judgment. At least not yet. But honestly, I do think if that day ever comes, we all will have bigger concerns rather than just worrying about what was your research methodology. Right? Did you use AI for for your research? research or not. I do think there will be bigger concerns. Right? We all be running after our jobs. So let's begin with the basics. What exactly is legal research and what makes it effective? There is a very common misconception in students today. Many students think that legal research means typing a few keywords into a database, be it SCC, be it Manupatra, be it Indian Kanun, and then downloading the first judgment that appears. Right? That is not legal research. That is legal searching. Research is much more than searching. Legal research is the process of identifying firstly, and then locating, analyzing, and then applying the legal authority to answer your legal question. Notice that the definition does not end with finding the law. It ends with applying the law. Because ultimately, see, clients don't pay lawyers to collect cases. Even clients can collect cases. What they pay lawyers for is to solve their problems. Imagine a client walks into your office after you've graduated and asks, can my employer terminate me without notice? Or can a consumer arbitration clause prevent me from approaching a consumer court? Then your task is not to simply locate what would be the relevant statute or what is the relevant judgment. Your task is to provide a reasoned answer supported by authority. Right. And to do that effectively, you need to understand what is a source of law. Broadly speaking, legal sources can be divided into two categories. Right? The first one is a primary source, second one is a secondary source. Can someone tell me what is a primary source, what is a secondary source? Anyone? Those in their later years of study? Okay. No worries. No worries. See, primary source would be statutes. Absolutely, Ganesh. Primary source includes constitution, right? Your statutes, your delegated legislations, and judicial decisions. Right? What is a secondary source? Secondary source, on the other hand, explains or analyzes or comments upon the law. So it would be textbook, right? It would be journal articles, it would be commentaries, it would be treaties, it would be law commission reports or expert opinions, right? A simple rule to remember is primary source tells you what the law is, and secondary source helps you understand what the law means. Okay, that is a thumb rule that you can use. Primary source is what the law is, Nikita. So primary source would be statutes, your bare acts, right? Your constitution, and all of the things that constitute to what law is. Secondary sources are are those that explain what the law is. Okay. Don't worry, I'm coming to that question. Yes, absolutely, Tithankar. Bare Act is a primary source and textbook is a secondary source. So now you need to know that judgments are primary source. Now you need to know that not all legal authorities carry the same weight. Suppose you find a blog post that supports your argument. That is helpful, but at the end of the day, what is it? It is a secondary source. It isn't very authoritative. However, you find a Supreme Court judgment directly addressing the issue. In that case, that is authoritative and that becomes a primary source. So, one of the most important skills in legal research is understanding the hierarchy of the authorities that you're citing. In India, Constitution is the supreme, right? Supreme authority. Below that comes the statutes and then the delegated legislations. And within case laws, we have hierarchy of the courts. So a decision of the Supreme Court is binding on all courts under Article 141 of the Constitution. High Court's decisions are binding on the court subordinate to it within its territorial jurisdiction. Hierarchy of courts. Niharika, hierarchy of courts. Okay. Uh, so decisions from what happens when if let's say there is a decision that was given by the Delhi High Court, right? Would it apply in Madhya Pradesh? Let's say, to give you an example, right? If you would have read, there was a decision by the Delhi High Court that uh, students can't be barred from appearing in exams if their attendance is below 75%. Do you remember that? Yes. So now what happens if, let's say, NLIU Bhopal expels its students or bars its students from appearing in exams? What happens in that case? Can NLIU Bhopal do that?
No, sir.
Who thinks yes? Who thinks no? Who is in support of NLIU? Who thinks NLIU cannot do that? Show of hands. Okay. For yes, NLIU can do that. Show of hands. Okay. A couple of you. Okay. And who thinks, okay, there are responses in the chat as well. Who thinks no? NLIU can definitely do that. Why? Simply because a decision by the Delhi High Court is not binding on within the territory of Madhya Pradesh. Right? It does have a very high persuasive value. I do think that has been stayed by the Supreme Court now. Uh, but whatever it is, right? What I'm trying to explain is a decision from the Delhi High Court will not be binding on other high courts. It will have a good persuasive value, but they're not binding. So the distinction matters here because good legal research isn't about finding an authority that agrees with you. It is about finding an authority that matters, right? Another important aspect of legal research is understanding jurisdiction. So before you begin research, you have to ask yourself three questions. First, which court am I dealing with? Which area of law applies? And what is the relevant time period? Okay. A good judgment from another jurisdiction, however well it is reasoned, may have limited value because if let's say it interprets a different statute altogether, right? An excellent case from 10 years ago may no longer represent the law if, let's say, it has been overruled or if the legislation itself has changed, right? So, legal research is like medicine. A doctor doesn't prescribe a treatment based on medical textbook published 20 years ago, right? You wouldn't want that from a doctor. Cannot rely on outdated authority. Yes, no, law evolves constantly. That's the rule of thumb that you have to, remember. But here's the good news. Strong legal research is not about having extraordinary memory. See, you don't need to remember every section, every judgment, or every, citation. Even very senior lawyers don't do that. What distinguishes effective researchers is not what they know. It's about how will they, find what they need. They ask the right questions, they identify the relevant statutes, they verify their authority, and they understand that research is not a one-time activity. It is, a repeated process. You start with a question, you find some answers, you refine your question then, and search again. Right? In other words, legal research is less like finding a needle in a haystack and more like discovering that the haystack keeps on growing when someone keeps moving the needle from one point to the other. And that is precisely why we have new tools like AI and why they've become so important. But before we discuss AI, and how it can help us research better, we need to understand the underlying research process itself. Because if, let's say, you do not know how to conduct a research, you will be handicapped if you use AI. Right? See, at the end of the day, AI is for accelerating your good habits, but it cannot compensate for bad ones. or poor ones, right? Now that we've established that legal research is and why, what legal research is and why it matters, let's move on to practical question as to how do you do it, right? I see there is a question. What are advantages of legal research and disadvantage? I don't think it has any advantages or disadvantages per se, but I guess as we progress, you might have your answer. So, how do you actually conduct legal research? If let's say I tell you, okay, I need some participation here. If I tell you to find me, what is, let's say, what does the law say about frustration of contract because of force majeure? Do you know what force majeure is, everyone? Act of God. So, what does the contract law say about frustration of contract because of an act of God? How will you begin this research? Yes, please. Nikita, go ahead.
I try to find which statute is the most recent one about contracts.
Yes, absolutely. First step is try to find what the statute is and what is the most recent one. If there have been amendments, and what is the most recent question. Then what would be your next step? Akshara has said, can you repeat the question? Surely. So I've asked you, can you tell me what will happen to a contract um, because of an act of God? In your research from. Nikita and Vineet in the chat have answered that they will look at statutes, the most relevant and updated statutes. Right. What do you do after? Read relevant sections and understand its implications and then find judgments. Right. So how do you understand its implication? Can you rely upon your own arguments or your own understanding?
No, no, we cannot rely on just single on our own implications. We have to look for the other statutes and other reasoning which has been provided by some credible sources like textbooks or any judgment, etc. That
Yes, absolutely. So, Sakshi has also said we will look at what is frustration of contract. Then there is a response, examine the wording of the clause and check the judicial interpretation of similar language. We'll look at how judges have applied those sections in recent cases. Right. So, to help you with this, first, obviously, you will find the most relevant statute. Then you will find the most relevant, section or article that is there. Once you've once you have that, you will go back to your commentaries and find out to I mean, you guys have answered correctly. You have to find out, examine what is the judicial interpretation of similar language, or in how has it been applied. So you need to then go to a commentary, read commentary on that particular section, on that particular of that particular part, and based on that, you will then find case laws, right? And then you read those cases, और उन cases में कुछ citations होती है, you go read those cases, right? And then you see how many times has this case been cited, क्योंकि commentary में you will find landmark judgments. So then you will go where all this landmark judgment has been cited, right? So that is how you know form sort of a sequence. If you guys could please hold on 1 second, I'll be back in a minute. Yes, so sorry. I'm back. Right. So once you have all of that, right, all of that information, you will you will then read the cases and then follow citation map of that cases. So what I want you to do is I want you to think of legal research as if you're building a house. Okay, you need to start from the roof. If you start from the roof, you will run into problems very quickly. You need to start from the foundation. What is the plan? What is the sequence? So what I've done is I've decided or I've come up with 7 steps. First step is you define the legal issue precisely. Right? The quality of your legal research will depend entirely on the quality of your question. A vague question will lead to vague results. So consider the difference between these two questions. Okay, I'm giving you two questions. First, what are consumer rights in India? And second, can a consumer who has signed an arbitration agreement still approach the consumer court under Indian law? Right. So the first question is very broad and it is very difficult to research effectively. Second question is more specific and focused. So when you're presented with a factual situation, you ask yourself, what is the actual legal question that needs to be answered? Uh, we'll come to that, Tanu, don't worry. Uh, then I'm so sorry, I lost my chain of thoughts. So basically, you need to have a very specific and focused question. So when you're presented with a factual situation, you have to ask yourself, what is the actual legal question that needs to be answered? Sometimes, see, when clients present you with a legal problem, they are all emotional. Okay, they have business problems, they have personal problems. Your job is to translate these emotions into a legal question. Okay. Now that translation is one of the most valuable skills you will learn as a lawyer. Let's come to step number 2. So our first step was define your legal issue precisely. Let's come to step number 2. Step number 2 is break the issue into components. More often than not, most of your problems will not have a single question. They are a series of connected questions. To, let's take a consumer arbitration clause example again. Can an arbitration clause limit the jurisdiction of consumer courts in India? Right? That is our main question. Now you can identify quite a lot of sub questions here. What does first section first sub question would be, what does the consumer protection law say? Second would be, what does the arbitration legislation say? Right. Third would be, how or have the courts already addressed this conflict between these two statutes? Right. Another question would be, is there a leading Supreme Court judgment here? And changes to that particular Supreme Court judgment? Right. So break down the problem into smaller parts to make it more manageable. Remember, legal research is often less about finding one perfect authority and more about assembling multiple pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. Okay. Does anyone want me to repeat anything? Are we all on the same page? Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So our step number 2 was break your legal question into components or break your issue into components. Now, when you're doing that, it is a good practice to sit down with a notebook and a pen and jot down uh, your sub questions. So you have a checklist of how do you want to proceed. Okay. Third step is identify the relevant jurisdiction and source. So before you begin searching, you have to determine where the answer is likely to be found. You have to see, is there a statute or a legislation that clearly mentions the consumer protection law? Is there a case law that clearly mentions the consumer protection law in India? Then which court's decisions would be relevant? So if let's say we talk about consumer courts issue, would the consumer courts judgments be more relevant? Would the high courts judgments be more relevant, or would the Supreme Court's judgment be more relevant? Right? Are there any right? The third point or the third step is identify the relevant jurisdiction and sources. Yes, Tanu, this is what I'm doing right now. I'm explaining how do you go about a legal research. Uh, so I've explained two steps so far. The first step being, it would be great if someone could please put down these steps in the chat so that people can refer back to it and we can save some time. Thank you. First step is define your legal issue precisely. Second step is break down your issue into smaller questions or smaller sub-issues. Third step is identify the relevant judgment, the jurisdiction and source. So you need to identify what court you need to look at and if there is a statute that governs your problem. The fourth step is generate effective search terms. See, you need to understand that legal databases cannot read your mind. The way you frame your search matters a lot. So suppose you're searching for workplace privacy. Instead of searching only for employee privacy, think more broadly, right? You might find relevant judgments in under right to privacy, under data protection, under workplace surveillance, under personal information, under confidentiality, right? So you need to think of synonyms or related concepts or alternate formulations. One useful technique is to identify key elements of the problem and generate multiple search terms for each. The better your search terms, the better your results are going to be. Okay. Now let's look at step number 5. How do you locate your primary authority? Now, once you have developed your search strategy, focus first on the primary sources. Find out the relevant statutory provisions, read the exact language of it from the Bare Act itself, and locate leading judgments interpreting those provisions. Do not solely and never solely rely only on extracts or summaries of case laws or of commentaries or the text thereat. Read the text yourself, right? This might sound very obvious, but this is one of the most common mistakes that is made by students. No one actually reads these days what the exact law says, and sometimes if you read what the exact law says, you will find out the answer yourself. I will give you an example. There was a moot that I was judging at NLI Bhopal. One of the and it was about investigation, right? One of the teams had said, who was in favor of the investigation, had said that the investigation had already begun, right? Or certain provision of law was applicable under the BNSS. We asked her, what does the section say? She explained the section very well. Then I asked her, what under what chapter does this section appear? She said investigation. Okay. When does an investigation start? An investigation starts only after an FIR has been filed, right? Or a complaint has been filed. In this case, there was no complaint filed. This was an outcome of a, search. The whole issue was of search and seizure. So she had relied on certain sections, and this is not just her. Almost all of the teams participating in that moot court competition had relied on the sections for search and seizure, which were under the chapter of investigation. Actually, investigation had not yet begun in that case, right? So it sounds horrible, and I'm not that horrible, but that particular team, I do remember there was one side in which both the teams had started crying. Like both the sides had started crying when they were answering questions, solely because they did not read the text. It sounds very basic and it sounds very obvious, but it is a very common mistake. I have judged about what 15, 20 moods now. And trust me, if I'm telling you, this is a very common mistake that students make. Do not make this. Can you explain what do you mean exactly by commentary? So commentary are books like this one. Right. So under contract law, you will see that there is a book called Pollock and Mullah. It will look like this. It basically, uh, explains you. I'll show you rather than explaining it. So what it will do is it will um, so this one it will tell you what the Bear Act says, right? If you can see here, then it will give you a synopsis or a table which will look like this. And in this table, there are subheadings. So this one, the section that I'm reading is section 73, which talks about compensation for loss or damage occurred due to a breach of contract. Okay. And in the synopsis, you would see various headings like effect of termination of contract under express provisions, parties committing breach, liable to compensate, या फिर plaintiff's conduct that dilutes the damage. And then later on, they explain all of the particular parts under text with case laws. So that is what a commentary is. These are very fat, these are very heavy, and you will find them in your library. So whenever uh, for those who haven't started law school yet, please, when you first go to law school, visit your library. Should be a temple, right? Go there every day. Uh, so where were we? You need to read what the law says, right? Sometimes the only legal research you might need to do in a particular case would be just reading the bear. Trust me, you will interpret the law yourself. Let's come to step number 6. That is using your secondary sources. Now, once you've identified the primary source, use your secondary source like a textbook or a commentary to deepen your knowledge, right? Or an expert's analysis. I would say do not rely solely on blogs a lot because see what the problem is. A lot of blogs that you now see are AI written, right? It is an open secret that a lot of blogs are published by students who often use only AI and then paraphrase what the generated content is and then publish it as a blog, right? From the data that is already available on the internet, right? And what data is it extracting this information to generate a blog is probably another blog that has been written by a law student using the same method. So it is like a vicious cycle that has been created. So do not rely on blogs, I would say. If you have to rely on something, read a commentary or a Bear Act or case laws. But do not keep blogs as your sole authority to determine how a legal question should be answered. Okay. Now coming to our last step, you have to update and validate. Okay. You need to verify whether your research is current. Has the case been overruled? Has the statute been amended? Has a larger bench taken a different view on that particular case? Okay. Is everyone with me for all the 7 steps? Do you want me to repeat the 7 steps? No? Perfect. Let's now move on to the use of AI. So when people discuss AI and legal profession, the conversation usually goes 2 ways. First is AI will replace lawyers, and the second group says AI is overhyped and irrelevant. The truth is, as is often the case in law, uh, AI lies somewhere in the middle. It is neither a magical solution nor an existential threat. It is just a tool. Like any other tool, the value depends on how you use it. Okay. A calculator did not eliminate mathematicians, did it? Now, online database do not eliminate legal researches. Uh, in legal research, how to conclude in last step? Okay, there are 2 questions, sixth and seventh. Please, someone do mention those points. I'll repeat again. Sixth point is use your secondary sources wisely, and seventh point is update your research. update and validate. Okay. So AI will not eliminate lawyers. It will eliminate certain lawyers who do not know how to use AI in a significant, in a efficient manner. Right. So let's begin with what AI does well. AI will always be better than you will be at handling very large volume of information. It can summarize long documents well. It can identify patterns better. It can automate Was there a question? No? Okay. Now, these capabilities that I've just told you make AI particularly useful in your early stages of your legal research. Suppose you're researching an area that is very unfamiliar to you. What AI can help you do here is it can help you identify key legal issues that are there. It can help you identify what would be a relevant statute to look at. It can help you identify or potential search terms for your database, and it can relate concepts. Right? Important questions may be overlooked. You need to note that when you're using AI for this, important questions may be overlooked. Right? Instead of starting with a blank page, you can start with a roadmap, and that is more valuable. You can tell AI to generate an outline for your research. Now think of AI as your brainstorming partner. You might ask, what areas of Indian law could you apply could apply to deepfakes? Right? There is a problem of deepfakes in today's world. So you can ask AI what areas of Indian law could apply to deepfakes. Is it just about privacy? Is it just about defamation? Is it just about IP? Is it just about cybercrime, consumer protection, or electoral regulation? Now you notice what is happening. AI isn't answering your legal question, it is just helping you ask better questions. And sometimes asking the right question is the hardest part of your legal research. Uh, can we use quotations and thoughts in legal research? Uh, thoughts, I would say no. Quotations can depends. Are they from a relevant judgment? If yes, then yes. Right. Now, see, one of the most effective uses of AI is improving your search process. Suppose your initial database search isn't, providing very useful results. AI can suggest you alternate keywords or related doctrines or different ways of framing the issue. It can help you move from this search isn't working uh, to perhaps asking the wrong question. And sometimes that's exactly what you need to do. So here's a simple idea that I want to give you, or a workflow that I recommend to implement AI in your legal research. First, define your legal issue, then ask AI to identify relevant sub-issues and generate search terms. Third, use authoritative legal databases to locate your primary sources. These legal databases are SCC, Manupatra, or Indian Code or whatever it is. Fourth, read and analyze these sources independently and then return to AI to help organize your findings and compare your authorities. You can ask AI if there is a gap in your research. You can ask AI if this is more relevant or this case is more relevant to my situation. So AI appears at the beginning and in the middle, but never at the end, right? Final analysis must always be yours. Because, okay, tell me this. If a judge asks you, why are you relying on this authority? You can't tell a judge because ChatGPT suggested it, right? Because that is very unlikely to go well. A lawyer sign, see, lawyers sign their opinions. Lawyers appear in court. Lawyers bear the personal and professional responsibility if anything goes wrong. AI will not, right? Now, let's come to the most relevant part of our discussion today, and that is what can go wrong when you're using AI, right? Because despite its many capabilities, AI has serious limitations, and understanding those limitations is very essential. Let's begin with the issue of hallucination. Doesn't everyone know about this? So AI systems, what it does is it sometimes generate information that sounds very convincing, but is completely wrong, right? This includes fabricating citations, imaginary cases, incorrect quotations, and inaccurate legal conclusions. The problem is not that AI makes mistakes. Humans make mistakes too, right? The problem is AI will make sure the mistakes are so confidently put, while humans will say, I'm not entirely sure about this. Right? Unless, of course, you're dealing with certain people who will very confidently tell you the wrong things in life. Right? Stay away from those. So it presents very incorrect information with the same confidence as it would with correct information, and that is very dangerous for legal practice. Now, there have been many instances around the whole world where lawyers have submitted court filings containing cases that did not exist. That has not only happened in India, it has happened in the UK, it has happened in the US, and almost everywhere in the entire world. Now, these cases had realistic names, they had, you know, somewhat reasonable citations and very persuasive reasoning. The only thing was they were entirely fictional. Even if, let's say, a judge spots that and does not, uh, it does not give you a penalty for using that, does not penalize you for doing that, it will still be very embarrassing in court, right? In India, we still don't see the advocate's name when such news are published. In the UK, I have personally seen when I was working there, there was a barrister whose name was published along with a firm of solicitors that had instructed the barristers. And that firm of solicitors was a good name. Now imagine on all of the legal news, your firm's name is being portrayed as someone who had used AI, right? And generated a hypothetical case. Client confidence you need to know is not optional as well, right? Confidentiality is another major concern. Many AI platforms process, user inputs externally. So if you upload a confidential client document without proper safeguard, you may compromise privileged information. Before using AI tools in professional settings, always ask, where is the data stored? Who can access this data? How will it be used? And you need to be very careful about this. You cannot put everything on ChatGPT because then it will become open source, right? Then there is also one thing that you need to know. Have you noticed this with ChatGPT? It will never give you no for an answer, right? It will always give you an affirmative answer. So that means ChatGPT is biased, right? Because it is designed that way, right? It will see when it was being designed, the designers, I don't think they thought of lawyers using it as much for legal research. They thought of humans using it to, let's say, validate whatever, sort of humanly emotions they wanted to talk about. If, let's say, I tell ChatGPT about a friend, about a fight that I had with my friend, and I tell it, was I right? ChatGPT will obviously tell me I'm right. And if it tells me I'm right, I'm definitely going to use ChatGPT more, and then I'm going to get addicted to AI. Whatever the larger scheme of things works, ChatGPT is biased, and AI models are usually biased. They also struggle with context, right? Law is very nuanced. Small factual differences can lead to very different legal outcomes. AI often misses those nuances. If you identify general principles but fail to appreciate jurisdictional, let's say, distinction or recent developments or conflicting authorities, then you will not get anywhere. And that is why legal research or legal judgment remains a human responsibility and not a technology responsibility. So let me give you a verification checklist. Uh, Whenever AI provides you with information, verify every citation. Okay. Always read the full text of every case that it has given you. Third, check whether the authority is current or not. Fourth, confirm the jurisdiction of the authority. Fifth, check statutory provisions and any amendments that have been there. And this is the last. Always ask yourself, does this conclusion actually follow from the authority that was cited? Okay. If you follow these steps, I do think AI can become a very powerful assistant rather than a potential liability. Right. I see there is a hand. Yes. Was there a question? Okay. Okay. Can I please repeat the 5 steps? Sure. The first step is verify every citation that has been made. Second is read the full text of every case that is cited, right? Third is check whether the authority is current or not. It should not be dated back to 20 years, 30 years, right? Then confirm the jurisdiction, whether it was in India, whether it was, let's say, in Bhopal or Madhya Pradesh, or if it was in Delhi. Then cross-check the statutory provisions and amendments. And then ask yourself, does this conclusion actually follow from the authorities that were cited? Okay. See, ultimately, AI will not change what the fundamentals of legal research are. Those core principles still remain same. You ask precise questions, you identify the sources, primary and secondary, and then you analyze critically every one of them, and then you verify whether what you've analyzed is correct or not. You need to exercise independent judgment. Technology can only help you arrive at that conclusion quicker. But at the end of the day, clients place that trust not in algorithm but in lawyers. Right? And that carries a very heavy obligation that no technology can replace, at least not in the coming years. That brings us towards the end of our session. And I do believe we've run out of time as well. And there is a question, sir. How do we find what all points are relevant for our case without missing any point? When we read bare text and so many cases related to it, can you give some tips relating to it? Sure. So I want to ask you, I did not quite get your question. If you could please unmute yourself and ask, that would be great.
Sir, I wanted to ask you, like, when we get a case and we read so many bare text and then so many cases related to it, so how would we know which all points are relevant to our case, which
So
we are
that
dealing
is,
with?
yes, so that is why you need to follow step number 1, where you identified your legal question, right?
Okay.
Someone has said, can you uh, explain step number 4 in 7 steps? Sure, just give me a second. Let me refer back to my notes. Effective search term. Right. So to give you an example of this, let's say you're researching about workplace privacy. Okay. So you will not only search for employee privacy, you will search for right to privacy, you will search for data protection, you will search for workplace surveillance, you will search for confidentiality, you will search for personal information that will help. Uh, how do you research? But I missed a question before that. How first generation law students use AI wisely for legal research? That is what we talked about right now. You need to be double check everything that AI has given you. Sir, how do you research for a research paper on comparative analysis of two same laws from different countries? Then you need to, Swati, then you need to, use the primary sources from both the, jurisdictions that you're comparing. And then you need to look at secondary sources from both the jurisdiction, and only then you would be able to, draw comparative analysis as to what is the position in one country and what is the position in the other country. So please check today's news, and can you give some idea why feel difficult of today's news? Right. Let me just quickly check. Uh, Right. I do think why you found today's news difficult was because this is all follow up. This is not, this is not a new case. This is a follow up on a previous case that has been going on for a while. So to understand this context better, you will need to first read what the case or what the first posts about those cases were. I see a lot of cases here, are follow ups, right?
Sir,
Yes.
which AI tool would you suggest, like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude? Many a times, I have found that in ChatGPT, the particular topic is given different information as compared to other AI tools like Claude or I can say the Gemini.
Right. So that is why I tell you, you need to, at the end of the day, apply your own human judgment. What do you think is right? See, law is very subjective. And there is a joke that, my teacher used to tell me back when I was preparing for CLAT. He would say that एक engineer के पास is everyone comfortable with Hindi here? Yes. एक एक
Yes, sir.
इंजीनियर एक इंजीनियर के पास
Yes.
एक आदमी जाता है, वो बोलता है कि 2+2 कितना होता है, तो बोलता है 4। कहता है अच्छा ठीक। फिर एक डॉक्टर के पास जाता है, वो बोलता है 2+2 कितना होता है, कहता है 4। फिर वो एक लॉयर के पास जाता है, वो बोलता है 2+2 कितना होता है, तो लॉयर उससे पूछता है आपको कितना बनवाना है। So law is very subjective that way, right? There is no correct answer. So even if, let's say, ChatGPT and Gemini or Claude are giving you different answers to a legal question, that means you at the end of the day need to decide what position would you be in a better position to defend, right? Even your professors will tell you. Unless of course that is a similar factual situation that has already been settled by law or already been settled by court. In that case, you need to follow that particular, sort of position. If let's say you were to uh, settle the position of Valence versus Fletcher's today, the coal mine case, वो flooding हो जाती है, टॉट्स पढ़ा होगा अगर आप लोगों ने अभी, तो if a similar situation happens, it is already settled in Valence versus Fletcher. You cannot go two ways about that. Right. But if there is a new, new problem altogether, then in that case, it can be decided either way.
All right, sir.
Sir, like I'm not fast in writing and write short in exam, and now all are saying we need to write much and fast. Right, you need to develop that habit, Ishan, in that case, I think, right? Because as long as we have to write a lot. Uh, thank you, Manthan. Uh, Sir, also, shall we do LLM? If yes, then which year of LLB should we prepare for entrance, and is it necessary or not? See, LLM completely depends on your personal, what your idea about law is. At the end of the day, it is a master's. Master's means specialization, right? It will teach you more about a particular area of law that, your bachelor's would not have or your undergrad would not have. So if you think you need to learn more about a particular area of law, then go for an LLM. If you don't feel that is necessary for your career, then don't. Handwriting matter. See, until and unless you are very ill legible handwriting, I don't think it matters. ठीक है, professors भी keywords देखते हैं. So if you do write at least the keywords properly, if they're legible, then I think you're fine. So which AI is quite better for these researches and searches? I mean, at the end of the day, I do think none of them are great, right? Because they do not rely on databases. You have to rely on your own judgment. It can fill gaps. Use any for that matter, right? Yes. Harvey and then Vineet.
Sir, like yesterday we discussed about like understanding case laws or पहले facts पढ़ने चाहिए and everything
Hmm.
और वो सब करना चाहिए. But actually today when I actually read a judgment and everything, I felt very stupid. एक तो मैंने पहली बार पढ़ा
Hmm.
और उसमें भी I felt like I am a very fourth standard kind of a kid who is not able to interpret a single sentence.
नहीं, वो
And
पता होता है. Don't feel stupid. Don't blame yourself. Don't be so hard on yourself. That happens with everyone.
and while I was preparing for my class, no, then जब मेरे टीचर्स बोलते थे केशवानंद भारती का केस का कंक्लूजन यही था that parliament has the power to amend the constitution but it cannot alterates core features and everything. But when we read it in a case law, it just seems like घुमा फिरा के पूरा क्या बोलना चाह रहा है पता नहीं. It does feel a
अब
lot like that.
वो चीज होती है, they come to the conclusion later on. So that is why I told you, start from the very end, read what the court directed, and then come to the facts. Then you'll understand the context better of all the conversation that is going on. Right. Abhijit?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so I had a very specific question regarding
Yes.
the uh, role of international moods like this Vienna,
Mhm.
etc. While we go for the litigation. And regarding the international moods only, so there is a very heavy cost involved with those moods if your
Absolutely.
college is not funding it. So, is
Absolutely.
there are any funded moods or like subsidized moods, international moods which we can look up for?
See, funding for moods would depend entirely on your university. So, like my undergraduate university would only fund for international moods if you won something there, else you had to bear the entire cost. Right. And now winning international moods is very difficult, right? Because obviously you're competing against the top teams from all over the world. So it is not essential that you do an international moot. No one will, not hire you because you haven't done international moots. It is never going to be a deciding factor. So if you think you have the resources and you have some time to spare and go abroad and party a bit, then definitely go for international moots. Because at the end of the day, I'll tell you what, these all of these international moves. Remember how in school we thought MUNs were very, great.
Yes,
हाँ, यूनिवर्सिटी में आते ही वो moods हो जाते हैं MUN की जगह. And once you
yeah,
graduate, you realize how useless all of that was.
yeah, I also think the same way. But regarding the international moods, I suppose it has some form of credibility when you go for some litigation or
No,
something
it
like that.
certainly does. See, international moods, they do add a bit of credibility to your name when you're fresh out of college. But it
Yes,
will never be a deal breaker. See, someone will
yes,
not, I don't think you will ever be in a position where someone will hire uh, anyone over you if they've, let's say, done this Vienna.
mm.
That will never be the case, don't worry.
That answers my question. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? If there are any questions, let's see. Oh, chat box. I did close the chat box. Okay, there is a question. Profession now after gap year of coming back to LLB as we need to stay in home city was working outside as HR generalist role. So even if I take up LLM, then I should take corporate law or labor law, right? That is a yes. In that sense, I think employment laws or corporate law would make more sense for you, considering you're already an experienced HR professional, because that will add to what your credential has been, right? Uh, if you do end up want to take a job in house, I think that will be great. Sir, in which year we participate in moot court competitions? It doesn't really matter. You can participate in any year of study. You just have to be fine with the idea of, um, there will be someone who is in years of study above you and you might lose to them. So in my first moot court competition, I remember I was in second semester of my first year, right? In the semi-finals round, I was put up against someone from fourth year of study. And of course, I lost. That was my first moot. And I lost in the semi-finals. And I was so heartbroken, I could not tell you, right? So if you can right, bear that pain, feel free to go, do moots in your first year because there is no set criteria as to when you should do moots. Please fill the form, guys. That is very important. Uh, which, according to you, is better, a 3-year LLB from NLSIO or LLB from DLLB or from second or third year MLA? It really doesn't matter, to be very honest, right? It doesn't create a very huge gap. Sir, I've had an opportunity to participate in moot court competition, but due to some classroom politics was removed from the group and lost opportunity. See, those things will always be there. right? Those, those things you will have to face even when you start working. Office politics is a real thing. What daily habit should I develop to succeed in law school and my future legal practice? Currently, just completing my first year. You need to develop a habit of reading, and you need to work on your sitting habit, because trust me, I've been sitting on this chair all day today. I sat at 9:30 in the morning. I did take a break in the middle and go to the gym for a bit, but all day I've been sitting in this chair, right? So one, you need to develop a habit of long hours of sitting and staring at a computer screen, right, without getting a headache. Two, you need to learn how to read more, and three, you need to develop a habit of you know articulating your thoughts better, clarifying your thoughts better. What is your opinion on? Okay, wait, there is a question that I missed. Sir, how can one know which field is better, litigation, corporate, or judiciary? Like, what questions should one ask from themselves? See, I will tell you, do internships. That will give you an insight into what it looks like, or what an everyday life looks like in litigation or corporate or judiciary. See, all at the end of the day, all three are hectic. Litigation, may you work all day, right? People think litigation is very chill. It isn't, right? You start, I'll tell you what the schedule looks like for a junior person who's entering litigation. In Jabalpur, this is what everyone does, be it if they've been in years, 20 years in practice, or if they're just starting. So when I first started in Jabalpur High Court, I used to go to court at 10:30 in the morning. Then for that, I had to leave at, 9:30, 9:45 ish in the morning. Then we stay in court till half four. Court 4:30 छूटता है. 4:30 के बाद 4:40, 4:45 तक you leave the court premises. Then you reach home at 5. Then you take a rest for 1 or 2 hours. And then 7 वापस you go to your senior's office, and then you sit there till 10 in the night, and then work on the matters that are listed for the next day. Right. So litigation, and then when you come back home at 10, when you leave your senior's office, you come back home around 10:15, 10:30. Then you do not have even an ounce of energy left in your body to even have dinner. Sometimes, you fall asleep in the clothes that you wore to your senior's office. So, and because the next morning you have to wake up and do all of that over again, right? And then in the court, you're moving around constantly from one courtroom to the other courtroom. You're constantly on your feet. You know what they say about litigation? Wear the most comfortable shoes you can. Don't become fancy. Wear the most comfortable shoes you can, because you have to roam around so much. So corporate litigation is just as difficult as corporate. You hear horror stories about corporate, right? My peers who are working in tier 1, tier 2 law firms, tier 3 law firms, they're working till 4, 5 in the morning. They don't get weekends off, right? So corporates is difficult. Litigation is difficult, right? Judiciary is even more difficult, because imagine, judges have to sit there, listen to hundreds of advocates each day. High court judges का roster में 100 cases कम से कम होते हैं per day. And you must know, if you've been to court ever, not every advocate will make relevant arguments. There are some advocates which will make absolutely irrelevant arguments, and then some of them will fight, right? So you have to read 100 cases every day. You have to know what the facts are, and then listen to 100 200 advocates, because let's say both sides you're hearing at least 200 advocates, right, in a day. And then you have to dictate your order in that. And once you're done with that, by 5 in the evening or 4:35 in the evening, you have to then sit and sign the orders that you've given, right? And then you have to read for the next day. So, see, any career for that matter is difficult. Everyone's job is very difficult. If you think judge's job is easy, it is not. It is absolutely horrible to listen to 100 people, 200 people every day. Out of them, at least 50 will, talk nonsense. So, at the end of the day, it actually comes down to what is your difficult, right? You need to figure out what difficulty level you're fine with. So I was fine with difficulties of litigation, because I get to move around the court and meet people, interact with people. That is something that I liked. When I worked in a law firm in the UK, I absolutely hated it because I was chained to a desk. I cannot live like that. I'm a very social animal. I need to, speak to two, three people every day. I need to see new faces. I need to, roam around. So that is there. You need to choose your own difficulty. And only litigation can help you. Only internships can help you decide what you want to do with yourself. Uh, sir, are you in corporate or litigation? I am in litigation. I did corporate for a while. I was a commercial, but even then, in a law firm, I was working in disputes. I was working as a commercial litigator in the UK before moving back to India and starting Sharma Chambers. Also, I'm constantly sidelined. Then, how am I supposed to participate? Since a group of three competitions, one or two are speakers and a researcher. See, regardless of what you participate as, I don't think it makes much of a difference. Uh, there is some disturbance. Can we please mute? Uh, oh, perfect. Thank you. Uh, Sir, in my college, I got to hear that everyone placements in fifth year are better than for 3 year. Yes, that is absolutely true. That is true. That is something that you need to, consider. Placement opportunities for 3 year law students, so for 5 year law course students is better than 3 year law course students. I signed up for a moot, which was as a class 12 student only, and it was a very easy case, but I couldn't make strong arguments, so I gave up. I feel so stupid now. I feel like litigation. See, I'll tell you what. Initially, even I thought I wasn't gonna go join litigation. Right? It happens to you. Litigation that it just happens to you. Uh, but I won't say let anything define you so much. Right? We all make mistakes. Do you think the judges, even the top judge, topmost judge of our judiciary, Honorable Justice Suryakant, he hasn't made mistakes in his career? Everyone has made mistakes, but don't let a mistake define you so much that you let it govern, what your career path should be. Don't let it do that. Sir, can you tell me in brief about corporate tech law? Tech law, emerging field, not a lot of work in India. A lot of work is in public policy or policy drafting for companies, like regulations and meeting all the compliance that is there. Why I felt that way, do cases take so long to be decided? Currently doing an internship in district court, lawyers' arguments are so strong and confusing. Yes, they are. They are. So, you need to do an internship at the High Court, do a corporate law internship, do a judicial, research internship. Do that. Sir, you can say reality means those first generation lawyers. So what reality like after passing out? How many years will it take to earn? How much? See, there is no set standard. You might start minting money within 6 months of graduation. You might, but a good rule of thumb is everyone will earn after 5 years in litigation. That is a good rule of thumb that you should look back. Um, yes, Bhavi and then Vineet. And I guess those will be the last two questions that we will be taking because it's almost 9. Yes.
Sir, what kind of internships would you suggest for first year law students? District court internships or corporate
District court
internships?
internship. First year may don't go to corporate because you won't understand what they're talking about, right? You need to study more law to be able to appreciate what corporate law internships would be because they are more specialized teams. So first year may go do NGO internships, go do district court internships, see how law functions at the lower levels, at grassroots levels.
Thank you,
Yeah.
sir.
So my question was like, how do we start in the field of arbitration? Because people say that first you spend your time in the litigation or like corporate for like 5 7 years, and then you go for the arbitration. So I just have to say like, how do we first enter the arbitration? And regarding the entry into the arbitration, is there any specific certifications or like courses we can look for
There
so
are,
that gives us
yes,
a head up in start?
absolutely. There are loads of certifications or courses that you could pursue in arbitration that will, give you the basics. So first you need to study what arbitration law is about, right? Um, then you need to figure out, if you enroll with any of these courses, there are loads of courses online, right? Some good ones that I recommend. The best one, I'll tell you what the best one is. The best one is the ones offered by the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators, that is CIR. I'm also qualified through that. So I'm qualified at a member grade. The lowest grade there. So it has a free student membership that you can sign up for. You won't have to pay any money. Then it has an associate level membership and then a member level grade membership, which I'm qualified at. And then highest is a fellow, which is after 10 years of practice. Right. So CIR is one of the best institutes when it comes to arbitration or learning arbitration. Right. Okay. Cool. Then let's wrap it up.
Sir, sorry, one more question.
Okay,
Uh,
no worries. We'll take one last question
uh,
then.
Sir, I am in my first year, and what should be my daily routine and study strategy to build a strong foundation, basically in the very first year of my college and in law school?
As I told you yesterday, read as many cases as you can. Do your readings before your classes, because if you don't, classes will be absolutely meaningless and will be a waste of time. Focus in your classes. Listen to what the professor has to say. Trust me, they've reached there after learning something about law. So don't take them lightly. Don't think that they don't know anything or they're just here to waste your time. Some of them would be a bit difficult to understand, but bear with them. Do your readings, right? Apart from that, enjoy. I think that is what you need to do in your first year, because that is the only time you will get to enjoy. Yes, let's wrap it up now. I'm so sorry, Nivedita. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn, right? If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer questions there. But I guess it's now 9 p.m. and I'm very tired. I'm so sorry. Let's wrap it up for today. Uh, it was lovely meeting all of you. Thank you so much for your time today. Uh, yes, Sakshi, do you need a picture or something?
Yes, sir. Just 2 minutes.
Okay.
So, thank you so much, sir, for that insightful and engaging session. I am sure our participants now have a much clearer understanding of legal research and what it takes to build a successful career in law. As we come to the end of today's session, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Ujjwal sir for taking the time to share valuable experiences, practical knowledge, and insights with all of us. Before you leave, we request you to kindly fill out the feedback form that is shared in the chat box. Your feedback helps us organize more meaningful and impactful session in the future. And now let's take a virtual photograph. I requested everyone to kindly switch on their cameras and join us for a quick picture. Wonderful. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you again in our upcoming sessions. Have a great evening ahead and stay connected with the Collective Council. Thank you and bye bye.
Thank you guys. Good night. Bye bye. Take care. Good luck.
Right, sir.